49ers football returns tomorrow. Who's ready? Next on 9 and 8's Nonsense. Hello and welcome to 9 and 8's Nonsense, and we are only one day away from San Francisco 49ers football preseason year 2 for Trey Lance. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm super stoked. 9 and 8 here with you once again, and I've got my team with me for the first time. We finished the whole NFC West preview. It was a ton of fun, but it's time to start talking about the 49ers. First of all, we got Niner Kevin up here on that
What's up,
side
everybody?
And of course, you all know Jamal Armstrong. He's been on the show before. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm doing so well. I'm so pumped for tomorrow. We have Niners football, and I put out a tweet today. Just a quick story. I put out a little tweet. All I said was, there's San Francisco 49ers football tomorrow. And I know it's preseason, but clearly I'm excited about it. You two are clearly excited about it. I think the 49ers fan base is excited about it. That tweet it's closing in on 100 some retweets and over 400 likes. It's just clearly people are excited about football. And yes, it's preseason, but from now until February, we've got football every week. And I'm just so excited to have it back. Something to actually talk about.
Yeah, I know. I mean, last night or tonight specifically before the show even went live, I had to watch the Giants and the Patriots play, the Titans and the Ravens. And I was like, I don't care about these teams. I want my team to play. And so tomorrow night, 5:30, Pacific time, it'll finally be time to see this team that we've heard so much about, so much, training camp buzz. And obviously, I know we haven't talked a lot about training camp on this show. We've been really busy with the NFC West preview. I maybe should have started it a little sooner, but we're going to talk about all the big stories from the training camp before the preseason game tonight, as well as talk about this Green Bay game. And so, first of all, what I want to start with both of you guys is I want introductions for both you guys. Tell people a little bit about yourself. I think people would really know about who I am. I've been doing this for a couple of years now. But Kevin, I think you're the lesser known of the two. So I'll start with you. If you want to let everyone know, real quick, how long you've been a Niner fan, what's your favorite football Niner player, and then what your expectations are for this year.
Awesome. Yeah, like Nate said, my name is Kevin. My tag on Twitter is at SF9Niner49. I've been a Niner fan my entire life. My dad has been a Niner fan. He's 62 years old. My grandpa is in his 90s, and they would go to games at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco. So this stuff runs deep in our blood, and that's why I feel like for those of you who have heard me talk football before probably can understand why I'm so passionate about it, is because my family's been watching the 49ers since they were in existence. And my favorite player of all time has got to be the GOAT, Jerry Rice. I was lucky enough to have grandparents that actually VCR'd every single game in the 80s. So as a kid, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, all I did was watch Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Cool little story. I did once play golf with Jerry Rice. I played 18 holes with him.
Wow, that's cool.
Just kind of a random in San Ramon, random golf course. So kind of cool. But yeah, that's a little bit about myself, and I'm excited to be on the show with Nate and Jamal. We're going to kill it this year. It's going to be awesome.
Jamal?
Yeah, man. I mean, very similarly to Kevin, I also was born into a Niner family as well, too. So I've been a 49er fan my whole life. My dad's 49er fan, my grandpa. I mean, it goes deep. It goes really deep. So obviously I've been on the show here with Nate a few times, a little bit last year as well. Was also running my own podcast last year as well with Jasper on Crocs Network. Taking a little step back from that this year, but as you guys can see, I'm here with Nate, and I'm also here with Kevin. Kevin and I will be co-hosting, so you'll still see my face, still be on this platform. I'm also going to be going on with Amin the Dream every other week as well, too. So I'll be on with him, and then a couple guest appearances on other shows. So can you still hear me?
I call him the 14-year-old phenom.
Oh, right. He's amazing. I love that kid. He's super cool. When he reached out, I said, of course I'll come on the show with you. But yeah, so you'll still see me May not be doing my own podcast, but I'll be around. Super, super, super excited to be doing this stuff this year with you two in particular. I think we each bring something different to the table, which I actually really love. I think we're all very passionate about the 49ers. That's 100% for sure. But we also have different like perspectives on certain things as well too, which I really, really, really like that about us. I think people are going to love the show that we're going to do all year long. And I think the other question you said was, who's your favorite 49er player? I could also sit here and say the same thing as Kevin. I really could, and say Jerry Rice, because he was the first like superstar that I was like, word, this guy's amazing. And just like him, 4, 5, 6 years old, I was watching them as well too. But because he said Jerry Rice, I'm going to purposefully say somebody else. I'm going to go ahead and go with T.O. I'll go with T.O.
Great pick.
I'll go with T.O. He was amazing. Just fast, strong, really good hands. Well, I would say good hands, solid hands, but he was really good. And wide receiver is my favorite position to watch too. Wide receiver and corner, my two favorite positions to watch. Honorable mention, I'll go with Garrison Hurst and Frank Gore. I grew up with my brother watching football, and he's a few years older than me. And so he grew up more with Garrison Hurst. And so that was kind of his guy. And I liked him as well, too. But it was really more my brother's guy. So I got to grow up more with Frank Gore. And I kind of took him on as like my own. And he was the first actual jersey I had was Frank Gore as well, too. So I know he's been in the news lately for, some not so good things. But as a football player, really loved what he did on the football field. I loved what he stood for on the football field and working hard. His ability to play as long as he did is, I would say, almost unprecedented. So just a little shout out to him as well, too.
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say hello to 49ers Girl. Always good to have you here. Last Second Sports, my buddy Jesse.
What's up, Jesse?
Here without you. And then our buddy Raymond Martinez Jr. I'm going to try and get better at saying hello to people in the chat. I'm really terrible at it. I'm still kind of new to that.
True.
And so that's something I'm working on, but I will be getting better. Let's give a quick rundown of what's going to happen this season. So the plan is Jamal will be Tuesday nights. Every Tuesday night, we'll do a show talking about the game that just happened, talking about what's happened, what we hope for the week. And then on Thursdays, me and Kevin will be doing a show. The goal is to give you 2 shows a week. And then as this channel grows, we'll be doing 1 extra show a week, and that'll be a fully listener-focused show, which just needs time to grow, more time to have more people. You can't do a listener show without other people. And of course, I mean, we wouldn't be here without Roscoe's Christmas.
There he is.
The man that made a lot of the graphics for this show. So appreciate all y'all for being here. Let's start talking about some football. We got, the hype levels are at an all-time high. So tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to get out of bed. You're going to hit that alarm, that snooze button, whatever you're going to do. And you're going to wake up and you're going to get to put on a fresh Niner jersey and get ready to watch some football tomorrow night. So let's talk a little bit about some of the stories that happened between, the last time we spoke, Jamal, and this game tomorrow. What do you think of what you've heard about the offensive line? How do you feel about the rise of Burford? The fact that it turned out that Banks isn't such a big concern as a lot of people thought. I think me and you last time we spoke were like, so much is going to be reliant on if Aaron Banks is good or not. We talked about the center. Seems that Brendle's going to be the center start. We're going to see that tomorrow night. And then, of course, McGlinchey's back. Hopefully he's better than ever. A lot of that stuff, But what do you think of this offensive line going into tomorrow night?
It's funny. It's funny that we start with that, considering, like you just said, I believe the last show that we did talk about the offensive line. No, that's not anything new. Most of us have been talking about the offensive line since the season ended and since we found out that Mac wasn't going to come back. So this isn't anything new. Nobody's really concerned about Trent Williams. We kind of know what to expect from him. He's literally on a different level than any other left tackle potentially ever, which is crazy, but that's like actually a thing. So nobody's really worried about Trent Williams. Yeah, when it comes to Mike McGlinchey, I did have my concerns, but I'll be honest. I'm proud to see what I've seen from him so far, what I'm hearing from him in camp. I remember how many months ago was it? 2.5, maybe 3 months ago now. The first picture we saw from him, I forgot who took it. When we first saw Mike McGlinchey, he looked super, super, super skinny, right? And then
that was an old picture, though. I'm pretty sure.
Exactly, and that's what I was getting to. So we all thought it was like right then at that present moment, and then I think it was about 2 days later he posted on Instagram some more updated pictures and him working out on the practice field as well too. So it's good. It was good to see that he's a bit further along than many of us and myself had thought originally too. So I'm optimistically I'm really optimistic about Mike McGlinchey. I've heard some good things. He's had a couple, I don't want to call them stonewalls, but he stopped Nick Bosa a couple times, held it pretty well in pass coverage, which in my personal opinion is his least strong suit. I think he's better served as a run defender or as a run blocker. So it's good to see that he's healthy so far. I know as Niners fans, or I assume as Niners fans, you guys are a lot like me. I watch these practices or I hear about these practices, and I'm waiting to hear who got hurt because we've seen a lot of injuries over the past 2, maybe 3 years. That I literally go into watching these practices and watching things on Twitter like, are they going to be okay? Is someone going to get hurt? Is Verrett okay? And I like that they've been slowly bringing guys along. Kinlaw in particular, who looks phenomenal. He looks out of this world. That dude's just a behemoth of a man. He's huge, but he also is in really great shape. So it's really good to see that they're slowly bringing him along as well too. I truly feel like, I don't want to call it a learning lesson, but from the injuries of the past couple of years, I think they decided, you know what, let's take it a little bit easier. I could sit here and talk about Trey Lance as well too, which I'm sure we'll get to that.
Trey Lance. We will get to Trey Lance. Don't you worry about that, Jamal. Kevin,
but in regards, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Kevin. We're talking about, we're talking about the offensive line. I know you have. The reason I wanted you to come and be a part of this is because your expectations for this football team are even more so than anybody on Twitter, and we have a very demanding fan base on Twitter. When you think about the fact that this is what most like what your offensive line is going to be, it's going to be Brendel, 2 rookies in Banks and Burford, but also McGlinchey, who I think a lot of people don't understand how good he actually is. I mean, he's not like a phenomenal, pass blocking guy, but he's one of the best run blocking tackles in the entire NFL. And then they do have the best tackle in the NFL on the other side. What are your thoughts on this offensive line and protecting this rookie quarterback?
Well, it's not the best situation that they could have, but it's almost a situation where they have to roll with what they got, right? I think that Burford could be a potential steal in the draft. I'm excited to see how he plays. I know at UTSA, I don't know a whole lot about him, but I know he played left tackle at UTSA. So moving to a guard position, right guard, is a little bit new, but it sounds like that he's doing all right. And so I'm excited to see him because usually the 49ers get a steal late in the draft, and they always get a steal in the undrafted free agent market right after the draft. So him, of course, he's got to do it on the field, but I feel good about what they're saying. There's a little bit on him in Brick by Brick. He seems like a really solid dude. He wants to work hard. He wants to get better every day. So that's all you can really ask for a rookie, right? I believe he's a 4th round pick. So if he can hold up the right side with McGlinchey, I'll get to him in a second. I think he could be really solid and a surprise. We know Aaron Banks is obviously a 2nd round pick, so we expect him to play pretty well and to give Trey Lance, enough protection and be that guy that, not quite to the level of Laken Tomlinson, because he was a huge part of this offensive line. But if he can just be half as good or 3/4 as good as Laken Tomlinson, I think that's okay. I think he's trimmed down. I think he's a lot slimmer. I think he's built some muscle. And we know Kyle's run game, it's important to get outside and pull and be effective that way as a guard. So between those 2 players inside, I think we'll be okay. Center, I'm a little unsure about. I don't want Brunskill to start. I'll just be honest. We don't know what Brendel's going to do. We haven't really seen him play. So I expect those 3 on the interior to get a lot of playing time tomorrow because 1, they're going to need snaps. 2, they haven't played together unless in a game. They've been practicing. They haven't actually taken real snaps in a game together. And lastly, I think McGlinchey, I think something that's really interesting is the injury that we heard about. Sometimes those quad injuries are career ending, right? And so to me, for him to come back and actually be in training camp and be ready for training camp, be healthy, and I believe he participated almost every day. He had some off days just because this is his 4th, 5th year. So he deserves to have some days off, and he's recovering from an injury. But, I mean, from him running around and signing autographs and stuff, you can see he looks good. Like, he doesn't seem like he's too skinny. He doesn't seem like he's put on too much weight. He looks like where he needs to be at. So, to me, I don't know if our tackles are going to be playing tomorrow night. I'm assuming Trent Williams is not playing. But the interior guys, I'm really excited to see whether if it's Trey Lance behind center, Purdy, Sudfeld, how they protect and how they can be athletic in the run game. Those are the three things that I'm really looking for. But other than that, if they're solid up front, we're going to kill it. Offense is going to be phenomenal.
I think that's one of the most exciting battles about this preseason is going to be to find, I think, who the starting center is, Brunskill versus Brendel, because if we're being honest here, Brunskill was an AAF player who turned out to be a decent NFL player, and Brendel has been on a lot of different teams, really never started more than I think 6 games total. So it's kind of an interesting situation the 49ers have put themselves in, because if they stink, then we know what the first pick is going to be in the next draft. We know it's absolutely going to be center. And that'll be in the second round because we don't have a first round pick. But you think about that. I think that's going to be the main thing to watch. But there's also a couple other things I want to talk about to watch. Deebo Samuel signed his extension, so he's going to come back. And Brandon Ayuk is obviously 3, and I think Jennings is 3, and Brandon Ayuk is the number 1 wide receiver for this team. But generally, Kyle keeps about 3 extra guys. So if you guys had to just before the preseason game figure out who you think will be the 3 they keep, I'd love to hear just a quick hit on who you think the other 3 wide receivers could possibly be. We can start with you, Kevin.
It's a great question. And it's funny. I'll start kind of from the back going forward. We haven't really heard a lot from this guy named Tay Martin, who was going to emerge. He's a big guy. He's like 6'3", 225. He's an excellent route runner. He doesn't have a whole lot of speed, but he's kind of a better route running Jawan Jennings. Jawan is a solid route runner, but he's kind of only good going, in or out, maybe one cut. This guy can go left, right. This guy can do, multiple moves at the same time. He's got a great release package, and I really thought we'd hear more about him. But it depends. I think he might make the team potentially. I think Ray McLeod is a surprise pickup. In the offseason, we kind of focused on the negative and his fumbling and stuff like that. But apparently he's had a tremendous camp, and he's built rapport with Trey, so he's obviously going to make it. And then the third guy I'm excited to see is Danny Gray, just because of the speed element, something that we haven't had since Marquise Goodwin. And I just imagine this offense, we'll be running the ball. All of a sudden, you've got maybe Danny Gray in the slot, Deebo next to Kittle, and Ayuk out wide. In play action, and whatever happens. Kyle's going to scheme up something. Somebody's going to run wide open. Right? We know that's going to happen because he always has receivers running wide open. And it's just a matter if Trey's going to hit those guys. So those 3 I'm really excited about. I'm not sure about Tay Martin, but I know McLeod and Gray, if Gray can work on his release packages, I know he's kind of getting stood up at the line a little bit because he's in the NFL and it's not college. If those 3 can make the team, I'd be extremely happy outside of the 3 guys that we have.
And it's funny you mentioned Ray McLeod specifically. If you look at the unofficial depth chart, he's the kick and punt returner. So, if that's his position, and he'll probably make the team no matter what. So there'll only be 2 more, wide receivers on there. And I think Danny Gray is almost guaranteed. And so who's that final one? I think that there are some interesting choices there. We're not dealing with the Travis Benjamin who's like 80 years old. We're not dealing with who's the guy Chris hates. The
Mohamed Sanu.
Mohamed Sanu.
We're dealing
with much more talented players. He's on the Dolphins, I think, right?
Yeah, he's a Dolphin.
Jamal, who do you think will be the 3?
Well, yeah, real quick too, Nate. The last 2 comments I wanted to say, just 2 quick points I'll say real quick on the offensive line. Just in regards to Mike McGlinchey real quick. One thing I think that we're not talking about that is, to me, a big indicator of how he's doing. Listen to how he talks in the press conferences. He seems pretty confident. He talks about how excited and how grateful he is to the 49ers staff in the rehab process. To me, that says a lot that he's feeling healthy. Like he feels like he trusts his calf. That's a big deal, especially someone coming off an injury like that. I liked hearing that he seems confident in it. It seems like on the field, he's playing like he's confident in it. So props to him for, actually going through the rehab process to get back to that level, but also props to the staff as well that worked with him really year round as well too. So to me, that gave me a little bit extra kind of jolt of confidence that he's talking like he's comfortable with it. I think he can have a really solid year. I'm looking forward to him having a solid year. That was one other quick point. And then the last point was just real quick on Spencer Burford as well too. If you go back during the draft process, the way the 49ers talked about him was as a potential starter as well too. So I didn't really realize that right now. But I know that Jordan Elliott had posted because he had asked him questions, and the 49ers staff had actually talked to him about potentially coming in and competing right away to be a starter. I know his first 2 years he played as a guard, and then the last 2 years at UTSA he was a tackle. So he does have that swing ability to play inside or kick outside. I love that about him, and I just thought that was something that should be mentioned as well too. He's someone they saw as a potential starter. So I don't expect him to be an all-pro or anything like that right away. I do think he has the talent to get to that level for sure. If he can just be average this year, I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. So that was the last two comments I wanted to say in regards to that. In regards to the wide receiver room, I think you guys pretty much hit it on the head. It's definitely going to be those three: Ayuk, Jennings, Debo, obviously top three. I do think Danny Gray obviously makes the team. I really do. I think he makes it. I think McLeod makes it. Ideally for me, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this, I'd actually like them to split between punt and kick return. I don't want one of them to do both. I'd rather them actually split that. I think that's probably better on their health. And I think that they're both talented enough that they could each handle either or of those. I'd like to see that split actually, rather than one person carrying the mantle on that. And then Kevin, I'm really happy that you mentioned Tay Martin as well too, because coming into training camp and into even OTAs before that, I was looking forward to that. I like Tay Martin. He actually reminds me more of Kendrick Bourne than Jawan Jennings, but he does have Jawan Jennings like size. But his route running reminds me a lot of Kendrick Bourne. I thought Kendrick Bourne is an underrated route runner. He's not fast or anything like that, and I wouldn't say Tay Martin's particularly fast either. I think he might have ran like a 4.5 or a high 4.4. Not quick, but these guys know how to get open. And then the separating factor that I see between Kendrick Bourne and Kendrick Bourne and Tay Martin, and where he actually reminds me more of Jawan Jennings up until this point, is Tay Martin's got really good hands at the catch point. He goes up, he high points the ball really well. He's been a red zone target back in college, a really good contested catcher. So he's a guy that I'd like to see make the team. I won't sit here and say that I think he's going to make the team. I do think that he will make a roster somewhere. Appreciate you, Davo, bro. I do think he'll make a roster at some point. It may not be the initial 53 anywhere, but I do think he's talented enough and a team will take a chance on him. I'm hoping the Niners can keep him, but I just feel someone's going to grab him. So that being said, I don't think anybody's talking too much about Willie Snead. I actually think he probably he's got a good chance to actually make the roster. Now, he's not very big. He's like 5'11". I think he's like 195. He's not huge, but he does have history playing with quarterbacks with a similar skill set to Trey Lance in Lamar Jackson. So he's played in where quarterbacks rush the ball. He's played where he has to be an actual good run blocking wide receiver. So to me, that gives him. I don't want to necessarily say it's a leg up. You know what? I'm going to say it is. It is a leg up. Will he make the team or not? I don't know, but I do think that Kyle Shanahan does really value blocking from his wide receivers. It's also a veteran presence that can be there to, at minimum, push these guys. If Danny Gray is not ready to come in, obviously I don't see Willie Snead as a deep threat or anything like that. But if Jennings is continuing to, drop the ball at the catch point, or he's kind of underwhelming, well, there's a guy there that's a steady veteran presence that's been in the league 8, 9, 10 years who can come in and potentially just give you solid play. He's right now, I'll be honest, he's like a better Mohamed Sanu, but they're not even the same type of player, if that makes any sense. Just a steady veteran presence.
Jamal, I have a question for you. So you mentioned splitting kick return and punt return duties.
Yeah.
Who would you have doing which? So I'm assuming Ray would you have doing punt return?
Yep.
Who would you have doing kick returns then?
I'd like to see Danny Gray back there. I would not mind that. I'd like to see him on the field. I'd like to see him gain some. I'm the type of guy that likes to see a guy gain some confidence. If he's not going to be starting, or he's the fourth, fifth receiver, especially at the start of the season, get the ball in his hands, get him making some plays early on, find ways to just give one of the guys that's fast like that, give him opportunities to touch the ball. You've already looked into special teams. You've upgraded it throughout the offseason. Get a guy back there that you're actually comfortable with. I don't like to see a rotation. I mean, we saw Mohamed Sanu actually just fair catch punts last year. That's just to preserve the field position wherever they were at, not to actually have a threat back there. I don't like that. I want to see somebody back there who has a threat to potentially house it, like take it home. And the 49ers have a guy like that in Danny Gray, who is very much a guy that can take the top off of a defense. Get him some touches. I'd love to see that.
I think Danny Gray is absolutely making the team. I think that final spot is going to be interesting because it's going to be either Tay Martin, Willie Snead. I think those are the names. I think Tay Martin probably ends up making the team just because he's a rookie, and I think there's a chance they lose him if he doesn't make the team. But it'll be interesting because I just don't think Kyle Shanahan will take 7 guys. So moving on to the running backs, right now we know it's going to be Elijah Mitchell. We know it's going to be Jeff Wilson. We know it's going to be Trey Sermon. There's a lot of guys that are actually pretty interesting because they took Tyrion Davis-Price pretty early. But you're also forgetting about JaMychal Hasty, who's been a pretty important piece. And then this kid, Jordan Mason, people are talking about constantly throughout this whole process, how good he is. Are they willing to let him leave? And so it's interesting because I don't think they're going to take 3 quarterbacks. They're going to cut Jimmy that day. So there'll be 2 quarterbacks as opposed to the 3 they've taken in the past. So maybe they take an extra running back. There's a lot of positions to watch during these next 3 preseason games. Offensive line, wide receiver, and running back are the most important ones, because I think when you look at the other side of the ball, a lot of these guys are, it's pretty much set in stone who those guys are going to be. I think the corner will be interesting to watch towards the end of the game, who the extra corners will be, like backups, just because they've had so much trouble with injuries. But when you look at the offense, there's just battles everywhere. And so when you talk about the running backs, do you guys think that we'll see I think we're going to see a lot of Tyrion Davis-Price over these 3 games. And I think that he's going to make the team, but I think they're going to have to figure out if they want to keep 4 or 5 running backs, because I think Kyle Shanahan is going to absolutely keep his drafted running back. But I think he's going to figure out if he wants to keep, a JaMychal Hasty or a Jordan Mason. And I probably think he would lead more to Jordan Mason just because of the reports we've had coming out of training camp.
And that's where I agree with you right there. I actually think I'm going to agree here with Throwback. He says JaMychal Hasty will be cut. I think if it's close, and it sounds like it actually has been in camp, and Jordan Mason has been impressing, I think you keep Jordan Mason. He actually is a receiving threat out of the backfield. So is JaMychal Hasty, but it looks like Jordan Mason's been impressing, honestly, between the tackles as well, too. Now, is he a TDP? Is he a Elijah Mitchell? Is he potentially even a Trey Sermon through the tackles right now? I'm not going to sit here and say that. I need to see much more before I can put him on that tier. But I do think as a true threat out of the backfield, as a receiving threat, I definitely think I would say he's probably a better threat out of the backfield than JaMychal Hasty. And if it's close, which I think it is right now, I think you got to go with Jordan Mason there. Now, and I'll be quick here so I can pass over to Kevin. When it comes to this backfield, I'm going to be honest, bro. I love it. I love how deep we are, because we are going to run the ball a lot. Yes, Trey's going to run the ball too, but we're going to see, obviously, I think to start the season, obviously Elijah Mitchell is RB1. I don't think anybody's taking that from him. Nobody's proven to take that from him right now. I think in preseason, we will see a lot of Jordan Mason. I think we'll see a lot of Trey Sermon. And as you said as well, I think we'll see a lot of, maybe not a lot, but I think we will see TDP as well too. We got to see these guys get some carries. Absolutely. I think there's more pressure, or I'd say there's more light under there's more fire under Trey Sermon's feet right now.
You think so?
I think, he's got to perform. I think he's got to perform. I honestly think, I'll be honest, right now, I think TDP is probably the most talented back on the roster, but I think that Elijah Mitchell is clear-cut RB1. My kind of scenario, and I've said this in some chats as well, so you guys have seen this. My scenario is Elijah Mitchell is RB1, and until further notice, and unless somebody takes it from him, he's going to be RB1 all season long. But I also think that there will potentially be opportunities for guys like Sermon, for guys like TDP to, I don't want to say take over, but legitimately cut into some of those carries if he does get nicked up. Now, I don't necessarily expect him to get nicked up unless Kyle Shanahan continues to run running backs like, oh, this guy's hot, I'm going to just ride this guy because he's hot, keep riding that guy. Because I do think that's a way to get your guys hurt. And I think Elijah Mitchell, although he's bulked up, I do think that he's still prone to some injuries until further notice. Now, with a guy like TDP, and even with a guy like Trey Sermon, who's a bit bigger, I don't want to say he's brittle yet, but he did have some injuries as well last year as well. With those guys, and when you have more than one guy that you have to rely on, like we had to with Mitchell and then Debo last year, when you have that depth, for me personally, I'm looking to keep those guys fresh, all of them, not just run Mitchell to the ground, actually have some sort of a rotation. I do think Elijah Mitchell will be RB1, but I think you can legitimately get guys like TDP. I think he's probably going to be RB2, I'll be honest. I think he'll be RB2, but I think him and Mitchell will probably have similar carries, I think, over the last half of the season. I think early on, it'll be probably Mitchell carrying a decent amount of the load, but I think you could start seeing more of it start to balance out as we get closer to the end of the season. And then come playoff time, especially if we're in position to make the playoffs or be in the playoffs, if you can have two guys, at minimum two, if you can have Mitchell, TDP, and then if Sermon comes out as well too and shows that, look, you can't just keep me on the bench, I need to be playing as well, a three-headed monster of those three guys, and then having Trey Lance on zone keepers, man, I'm like, stop, bro, stop. It's going to be nasty.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is kind of the 49er way, right? Like having a ton of really talented running backs on the roster who, when guys go down, another guy comes up and is able just to run the system. So, we talk a lot about how Elijah Mitchell's running back one, right? And that's been a thing that everyone's talked about. But I think people forget Elijah Mitchell wasn't healthy much last year. He missed a lot of games because, missed a lot of time just because he's injured. And so if you can find a more durable running back in TDP or even Trey Sermon, then I think that role could potentially change to one of those guys. Would I say go draft Trey Sermon or TDP in fantasy right now? No, I think Elijah Mitchell's the only safe bet. But I think as the time goes on and the games happen, I think that could possibly change. And so we'll ultimately see with that. I think there's just so much with these preseason games we have to see. We're going to see who this line, who this offensive line is. Can they set up Kyle's run game the way he wants it? Can they protect Trey Lance? Can the wide receivers, work in the system, which I don't, that's the one thing I'm not worried about. It's the backup guys, if they can work in the system. One of the things I actually want to talk to you guys before we get to, to Timothy.
Nate, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
It's just about Elijah Mitchell. I'm curious your thoughts. It's been popping up over the last day or two that maybe he's not as good as some people think he is. And some people think he's really good. Some people think he's not that great. And some people think he's just a solid back. I honestly think I'm more towards the fact that he's a solid back. But when you're talking about a running back, if you have a solid back and you put that guy in Shanahan's system, that's going to be a good back. Like, it's going to be. And then on top of that, one thing that with Elijah Mitchell that I think some people don't give him enough credit for is the dude he doesn't fumble the ball. And that's huge.
Yeah,
he's not a guy that turns the ball over. So I'm kind of curious, your thoughts. Where do you stand on Elijah Mitchell? I think he's kind of getting slided. I don't think he's the greatest running back ever. I think a lot of people think that there are other running backs out there that are better than him. But I think he's almost starting to get a little slided. I'm kind of curious your thoughts on that.
I think that he is a 49er running back, and I think that the best way I could say that is in a fantasy way. And I don't like to talk fantasy with everything, but I think that 49er running backs are guys who are easily replaceable. And I think that, no one's drafting Elijah Mitchell or back then Raheem Mostert in the first or second round. Those aren't guys who people are dying to have. Like, could TDP or Trey Sermon become that? Of course. But I think that Elijah Mitchell is a guy. I think he's decent for the system. I think he doesn't fumble. I think that's a huge part of it. But I don't think that he's not replaceable by a guy who's potentially better. And when you talk about TDP and you watch TDP, you see that there's a potential for him to be a better running back and be a more important piece of this offense. And so if you told me we get halfway to that second Rams game and, TDP is now the starting running back and he's doing Nick Bosa type stuff, then Nick Chubb type stuff, then I wouldn't be surprised. But I think that would be Trey Sermon. But I'm just saying in general, like when a starting running back or a running back that is like a full featured running back in an offense, that's the thing the 49ers don't really have and they haven't really needed. But if Trey Sermon or TDP became that, I think that it would be immediately apparent that's where they are. I just don't think they need that because of the way that Kyle Shanahan sets these guys up for success. And I think that that's kind of a blessing of being a 49er fan and rooting for the 49ers is everything is set up by Kyle. And that's why I think so many of us get so frustrated when people talk shit about Kyle on, Twitter and on YouTube in general, is that, he basically is the cog that makes, everything work, and the players just fill in those little holes. And I think that what'll end up happening this season, we're going to find out who the running back of this team is. I think we're absolutely going to find out who the starting running back of this team is. So I'm not ready to slight Elijah Mitchell, but I need to see it again this year. I need to see more from him this year in order for me to be like, he's the guy. And so I think that we're going to see that once the season starts. I think we're going to spend a lot of this preseason just finding out who are the guys who are going to be on this team. Once we get to the season, we're going to really find out who the running back is for the San Francisco 49ers. Right, Kevin?
I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. I think one of the reasons why they loved Elijah Mitchell is he did run a fantastic 40. Now, I do think before he showed up to the camp and was ready to go, I think he ran that 40. I think he was a little bit not underweight, but he was not as heavy as he was when he was playing football.
You're right. He was about 210, 205. He was a little less.
We didn't see that elite, speed that Mostert shows, right? When he gets past the second level, he's basically gone. Elijah Mitchell's not really that way, right? He can get to the second level. He gets run down, but he's very solid from the 25 to 40 yard. I mean, if there's a hole open, he's going to get at least 25 to 40 yards, right? And that's okay. You don't need somebody to hit the home run every time, right? That not in Kyle's offense. Having Mostert, even though he was injury prone, was a luxury. So with Elijah Mitchell, I think they probably asked him to bulk up a little bit. I think he's probably up to 215, 220 now, maybe 225. So you can see the type of run game they're going to have. They're going from more speed, because they had Mostert and Mitchell last year were the 1-2, and now they're going from more speed to power, because now you see these guys that got, all of them are, I believe, over 220 pounds. They're all powerful guys. But to be a running back, you don't need elite speed, right? You don't need that track speed. What they do have is guys that can hit the hole, put one foot in the ground and go. And I think that's something that we'll talk about Ty Davis-Price, that his 10-yard split is 1.53, and a guy like Tyreek Hill is 1.50. So when he hits the hole, he's going to go. If he sees it, he's going to go, and he's going to go from 0 to 100 very quick. So I think that's why they like them. Personally, I hated the draft pick when we drafted him. I was like, who the hell is this guy? But I started watching his tape, and I started to understand why Kyle picked him. And you can kind of realize last year when
real quick, we gotta boo this guy. Boo this guy. Boo this guy. Boo Daniel Treptow. Boo.
We'll see you tomorrow night. Hey, 4 playoff games, buddy.
Go ahead, Kevin.
So no, what I was saying about TDP is that he hits the hole very quick. I do expect him to get a lot of carries. And I fully expect. I mean, I started watching film on him, and I can understand why Kyle likes him. He's big. He's tough. He's not fast. He ran a 4.48, pretty good for his size, but it was the 10-yard split that really impressed me, because you can see on film once he sees the hole, there's a little bit of an opening, he can get skinny and he goes. And in the NFL, Frank Gore was the best at this I've ever seen, is getting north and south very quickly, right? So that's something that they'll probably focus on. I'm excited to see Trey Sermon. He didn't get a lot of opportunities last year. For some reason, towards the end of the season, Elijah Mitchell was taking at least 90 to 95% of the carries. Other than that, we didn't really have anybody taking carries late in the season, because I don't think Kyle could really rely on anybody. So this year, it'll be nice to see that we could have a 2 or 3-headed monster kind of rotate in the game, keep Elijah Mitchell fresh, because I think down the stretch of the season, I think he's going to be very important, because you're right, Jamal, he doesn't fumble. He's very reliable, and he's versatile. And something that I expect to see this year a lot more than we saw last year, Elijah Mitchell in the NFC Championship was very effective out of the backfield, catching the ball. So I think that's something that's going to be part of our offense. I think that's something that Trey, if he can hit those throws, Montana back in the day was great at hitting Roger Craig out of the backfield and hitting him in stride. Those plays, they're not super explosive, but those matter in the grand scheme of the game. So I'm excited to see TDP, big, tough, strong. Trey Sermon, he's big and tough. He's kind of a one-cut guy. He doesn't have elite speed, but I don't think they're going to rely on speed this year. I think they're going to be more focused on power and inside zone rather than the traditional Kyle Shanahan outside zone. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go.
I think just the last two things I'll say in just regards to the running backs here. I think, I'm going to be honest, I think all three of us are kind of saying it without really saying it when it comes to Elijah Mitchell. We think he's a good back. And I'm going to use an example or an analogy. I just think he's, and I hate saying this because I actually don't like this saying, he's a lunch pail guy. He's a hard worker. He's very consistent, and you can win with a good back like that. Is he the most talented? No. Is he a hard worker? Yes. Is he probably 9 times out of 10 going to fall forward and give you at least a yard or two? 100%. And he's safe with the ball. You can win with that. You can get good production out of that. When it comes to TDP,
every yard matters, Jamal. People don't understand that
exactly
in the NFL matters. It matters.
Right. So although he might not be the most talented back ever or anything like that, you can win with that guy. And there's a lot of guys worse than that, to be totally honest. One thing that we needed to see from him grow last year to this year, which he started doing in season, so I don't think people can knock him, was his vision. Early on in that Lions game, the first half of that, or really the first 4 games of the season, I didn't think that his vision was very good. And in that Lions game, I didn't think his vision was very good either. But he happened to, I think, run into I forgot which lineman it was. He ran into one of our linemen, was able to bump it outside and rush for a touchdown that was like 30 yards. I remember that play in that Lions game, but the vision wasn't very great running into linemen's backs. So I've seen his vision improve, and so I can't hold that against him because I've seen him start to improve. So it's not like these guys, he wasn't a rookie last year. It's not like he can't improve. But I can also look at that and then look at TEP and say, okay, this guy's got the natural talent that, at least for me, that I look for. He's a bit bigger. He's naturally more 225 than Elijah Mitchell. He actually holds that weight. Like, he actually walks around probably at 225 like that. In my personal opinion, his vision is really good. That LSU offensive line was not good last year. And I've seen multiple times where he's like 6'1", 6'2", but he gets really skinny between the offensive linemen. And like you said, Kevin, his split was 153. When he sees it, his burst is actually elite. So that's a guy that I look at that I say his vision, okay, I see a little something there. That size, I can see a little something there. I'm going to be honest, I think he's kind of like I think he's like Leonard Fournette, but I think he can be better. Like what Leonard Fournette probably should have been. That sounds kind of blasphemy because coming out, Leonard Fournette was an elite prospect. Like,
yeah, no, totally.
like elite. So go ahead, Nate.
I think that it's going to be a lot of fun. You know, every year there's certain things you watch for, right? I just think that everything I'm watching for is the offense. And there's one more thing I want to get to before we talk about Trey Lance, and that's the tight end position. I know that George Kittle, the best tight end in the NFL, he proved it to me last year. I was quoted saying on my show and on the Niners Nation show I used to do that I thought that Travis Kelce was better. But last year really proved to me that George Kittle is the best. But when you talk about George Kittle, you also can't talk about George Kittle without talking about injuries. So when you look at these backups, the Tyler Crofts, Charlie Warner, Ross Dwelly, do any of these guys really make you excited to watch them play? Any of these guys really make you excited to hope that they can win that second string job or anything? Just because, like, I know a lot of people don't like Charlie Warner. I think maybe it's you, Kevin, who hates Charlie Warner. I'm not quite sure. So there is someone in Spaces who specifically says Charlie Warner sucks. I think it might be you. But,
he's more of a
what do you guys
tight
think
end.
about this tight end situation? Just because I love George Kittle, but let's be honest here. We've never played a whole season with him healthy. And so when you think about having to have another tight end healthy in this offense for it to run and be the way we want it to be, who's the guy that you think could be a backup? We'll start with you, Kevin, and then we'll go to Jamal.
Well, I think Tyler Croft could potentially be a guy that I remember in 2020 when we had Jordan Reed, he was on an inline tight end, right? He kind of lined up outside and sometimes, next to the line of scrimmage, but split out wide. I think that's something that if Kyle wants to integrate that into his game, he could also do that with Dwelly. I expect those three to pretty much be the 1, 2, and 3 with Kittle. But I think Tyler Croft is somebody that we might be sleeping on. I don't know too much about him, but the stuff that I did see, most of his catches were downfield. So that's something that I think an element to our offense that we haven't had in recent memory, because Kittle's catches are always 5, 6, 10, 12 yards past the line of scrimmage. Yeah. And he's getting 10 or 15 yak, right? So I think it's something that we could see some more tight end wheel routes down the field. We could see seam routes down the field to where maybe we can have, an RPO where Kittle's in line, but we have Tyler Croft in a 2 tight end set, maybe running, an over route, and then Kittle's running up the seam, or vice versa, something like that. I think that's an element to our offense that we haven't had before. And I know we've seen Kyle run Kittle up the seam against the Texans when Trey was playing quarterback. We never really saw that with Jimmy Garoppolo. Not to my memory. I mean, it was always kind of a quick slant or something like that, not straight up the seam. So to me, that's an element of our offense that we'll be able to see. Charlie Warner. I mean, we took him in the 6th round. He's a blocking tight end that can't block. So why he's on the team, I'm not really sure. I feel like he's taking up a roster spot. But anyway, I think Dwelly, I just don't think he was utilized enough. Grant Cohn, that's Grant Cohn's guy. I agree that he's not utilized enough. I think you could split him out wide. He's tall. He's got phenomenal hands. So, I think maybe in games where we might be playing catch up or trying to, split the defense up, maybe we put 3 tight ends on the field, or maybe we do 2 tight ends and we have Dwelly split out wide. One thing that we know that Trey Lance can do is throw the fade, right? And I think Dwelly being 6'6", He's not an elite jumper, but he's got great hands. That's something that we could see on the goal line. Just another element to our offense that we haven't had before.
Jamal, I mean, how do you feel about this? Do you think that obviously I think they're going to keep 3 tight ends, right? One's George Kittle, one's probably Ross Dwelly. But when you think about Warner and Croft, which one more suits the 49er way of offense, in your opinion?
I'm glad you said that because I was literally going to open the statement saying, so we all think there's going to be 3 tight ends, right? So we do agree on that. There'll probably be 3, right? So then I'm with you because I have to, if I think of it logically, I'm going to be honest. Yes, George Kittle, clearly tight end 1. There's no question. Like, we all understand that. But as Kevin very clearly stated, and I got to touch on it again, I can't guarantee he's going to be healthy all season long. I just can't. I hope he is. I really do. And with Trey Lance, I think he can be healthier, but I can't guarantee it. So if that's the case, I look at this list. Who is it? Dwelly, Troy Fumagalli, Tanner Hudson, George Kittle, Tyler Croft. Obviously, we know what just happened with Jordan Matthews, and then Charlie Warner. I look at those guys and I say, who probably is the second best blocking tight end? I'm sorry, Kevin. It probably still is Charlie Warner. Out of those guys, it probably is. So I do honestly think he probably makes the team. And I want to say,
how many blocking tight ends do you need on a team?
I say 2 because you don't know if George Kittle will stay healthy. I truly believe he might.
But it's not like Dwelly can't block. He's not a great blocker, but.
Well, I'm not saying he can't, but I do. But I also see, Kevin, I actually don't disagree with you because I do think that Ross Dwelly has the hands and he can be much more of a threat with Trey Lance. I 100% agree with that. Out of the tight ends, outside of George Kittle, he probably does have the best hands on out of these guys. I mean, let's be real. Troy Fumagalli, he's not going to make the team. I'm pretty sure he's a long snapper now anyway. So, and he's old too, so he's not going to make the team. I'm just going to be honest. Tanner Hudson, he's a little intriguing, but I also I'm going to be honest. When we signed Tyler Croft, it intrigued me quite a bit as a move tight end. Tight end. So Kittle, and then I was honestly excited for Jordan Matthews as well too. Obviously, we know he was a wide receiver, bulked up this last year, and actually kept his speed as a tight end. Yes, he was a little bit like shorter. I think he's like 6'3", and I think all our other tight ends are like 6'5". I remember seeing a couple pictures and being like, yeah, he's definitely slightly shorter, but I'm not going to sit here and act like Evan Ingram doesn't play tight end, and he's 6'3", so I can look at Jordan. Anyway, he got hurt, so that's out of the picture now. So I look at it, got George Kittle for sure. Tyler Croft, you said it, Kevin. You said it. Those plays up the middle. He makes a lot of plays down the field. I think he was last with the Jets last year, and he made a couple nice plays there with Zach Wilson. Like he did. And I've seen him as well. I think he was with the Bills. I think he was with the Bills for a year too with Josh Allen. I've seen him make a few plays. So he intrigues me. I'm going to be honest. He intrigues me. And then the reason he intrigues me is because I'm pretty sure Ross Dwelly's on the final year of his contract. Like they could cut him. Yes. So I'm kind of in this boat where George Kittle, obviously, I think there's probably a battle there between Croft and Dwelly, and whoever wins out of those two probably makes it. And then out of default, and I could be totally wrong. I'm not even going to sit here and say like, oh, Jamal, you're right. I think Charlie Warner probably makes it out of default because I do think he's probably still the second best blocking tight end, and that's not saying a lot. It's just not.
I think that would be a mistake if Warner makes the team, personally.
Could be.
Well, we'll talk more about that. I mean, so now you go into the game tomorrow. You're gonna watch the wide receiver battles for 4 and 5. You're gonna watch the offensive line battles because there's a ton of them: center, different guards, backup tackles, all that stuff. You're gonna watch the tight end battles for second and third tight end, and you're gonna watch the running back to see who the fourth running back is gonna be. But the one thing we really don't have to watch, that I think everyone wants to watch, is the quarterback battle. It's going to be Sudfeld. We all know it's going to be Nate Sudfeld. He's going to be the backup of this team. Brock Purdy will probably end up being on the practice squad. But the thing I really want to focus on for the last 10, 15 minutes of the show is Trey Lance and a lot of the talk that happened during the training camp period before tomorrow. And we're only going to see Trey Lance potentially play the first preseason game and the third preseason game. So next week, we'll really focus a lot on these battles, what we saw from the game tomorrow. That's what our focus will be next week, talking about the different positions, not really talking about the quarterback. But I really want to talk to you guys because we haven't really spoke much about this. This Trey Lance stuff that's happened, with the training camp, with the way that people have talked about him. I just want to, give my thoughts on it, and then I'll totally get to you guys. But I think that a lot of this is ridiculous. I like to go in spaces and say there was a wise man once. He played for the Philadelphia 76ers. His name was Allen Iverson. And he said, we're talking about practice. Not a game. We're talking about practice. We're talking about a practice where a man decided that he couldn't throw the ball to the team. We're talking about a practice where a man had none of his starters and didn't throw the ball right. You're talking about practice. The reason you practice is to get better. So when you get to the game in 4 weeks, you're better. You're ready for it. We're talking about practice to practice and get better. Kyle Shanahan said it best. He said, if we look like shit in practice, I'm not mad. If we look like shit in the games, that's when I get mad. We look like shit in practice. It means there's things we need to work on. We need to get better. And as long as I see improvement, I'm fine. And so when we're talking about Trey Lance and having practice struggles, what are we doing? We're talking about practice. And so if anyone really cares about what a quarterback is doing in practice, then I just don't know what to tell you. Tomorrow, when we see Trey Lance play in that first quarter, I think that's going to be really important. It's going to tell us a lot about him. Obviously, we're not going to know as much. I believe personally, you have to give a quarterback 2 years. I think Daniel Jones has gotten into his 2 years. We know he sucks. Jalen Hurts is going to get his second year this year. We're going to find out if he sucks. That's the thing. I think every quarterback should get 2 years. And Trey Lance is only on his first year. He's only on his first real preseason start. And so when we're talking about these turnovers, and the fact is he's playing against one of the best defenses in the world. I don't think I have to be any more simple with you guys than that. This is one of the best defenses in the entire NFL. There's no defense that we see year after year that's better than ours. The Rams are not better than the 49ers. The Seahawks are not better than the 49ers. And the Cardinals are not better than the 49ers. Now, maybe the Steelers might be better. You could talk about the Ravens possibly. There's other teams, right? But this is a team that has one of the best defenses in the league and a 22-year-old quarterback. There's going to be mistakes in practice. Now, I believe personally that when you train against a great defense, you end up being better in the long run. And so we're going to find out in preseason games 1 and 3 how good this kid is, and we're going to find out this season. There's a lot to find out. And so I really feel like enjoy the first quarter tomorrow. Really watch Trey Lance, see what you see, see how the improvements from last year are. But don't take anything too serious until we get to the actual games. I'd love to know what you think first, Jamal.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna be honest, bro. You hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. It's as simple as that. This is practice. And last I checked, the 49ers have had a top 10 defense for the last at least 3 years. Actually. Yes, we had a lot of PIs and things like that last year. Yeah, they still ended up 6th overall as a passing defense. We still have a deep defensive line. This is still a team with a new starting quarterback who's trying things out in practice. Those who really watch Trey Lance and who are real football heads of the 49ers and really like the draft, you understand that what we're seeing in practice are some really cool plays, and some of those things we'll see in games. But I'm not going to sit here and also act like Trey Lance is not also trying things in practice and seeing what he can and can't get away with, especially against the top, I think, which is going to be a top 5 defense this year. You try things out. You actually throw the ball deep down the field. I truly believe there was a heavy emphasis on throwing the ball deep down the field, especially on certain days. Are you going to miss some of those? 100%. Are you going to hit some of those? Yes. And in my personal opinion, we've already seen from Trey Lance, more often than not, he's going to hit at the higher percentage of those deep throws. You could probably, I have to go look and do some research myself, but I guarantee when you're going to look at percentage of throws, let's say 25 plus yards down the field, it's not 70%. The elite quarterbacks don't hit those 70% of the time. They don't hit those 80% of the time. You have guys like Patrick Mahomes, who I'm not going to sit here and say what number it was, but when you're throwing down the fields that often, at some point it becomes a 50-50 play. At some point. Now, I've already seen with Trey Lance, he has, and he's shown us multiple days, the ability to put the ball in a spot where only his receiver can get that. I've seen that. That's an elite trait. Now, at the same time, he's a first-year starter. So like you just said, we're going to see plays. There's literally going to be plays where he might have potentially a bonehead interception, and then the defense forces them to go 3 and out, and then the offense gets right back on the field. We do a play action, and it's a 60-yard touchdown to Deebo Samuel or Brandon Knight. That actually can happen. Is it going to be frustrating and up and down for some people? Yeah. And it's going to be frustrating for those who are saying, oh, he's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to have those certain plays where he should be better than that. You guys say he's better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, have that same energy that you had with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's only fair. Jimmy Garoppolo was an 8-year vet. This kid is a first-year starter, and I just don't get it, bro. I'm going to be honest. I literally just said it. He has the ability to potentially have a bonehead play, but in the same breath, he has the ability to come back and have a deep play that's for a touchdown or a big play. Like, if we're going to be just honest about it, that wasn't necessarily the case with Jimmy Garoppolo. And if it did happen, it was because there was a lot of yards after the catch, which is still going to be set up for Trey Lance as well. It's not like Trey Lance can't do those things as well, too. We're going to see a mixture of all of that together. So as much as I said, I keep using the word boneheaded play, what I mean is there might be like an egregious interception. Like that could happen. More often than not, though, Trey Lance is going to be much more safe with the ball than what we saw with Jimmy Garoppolo, simply by the style that they play quarterback, the style of football that they play. Trey Lance is going to get the ball outside the numbers, outside the hashes. He's going to push the ball deep down the field. Gorgeous shirt. I love that. Like he actually plays football safe because he actually can throw the ball to any part of the football field. Like any part is a threat. So that extra 2 steps forward that teams are playing when they're playing Jimmy Garoppolo, like the Rams did when it really came playoff time, like those extra 2 steps they're taking forward. Yeah, those teams are going to be taking those 2 steps back because of the threat of Trey Lance. Then what happens then when you also have potentially Sermon and or Mitchell or whatever double combination you want of running backs in the backfield, and then we do a zone read, he keeps it? Like, come on. We haven't even mentioned his legs too. So I don't want to continue going on a rant. I just want to say keep the same energy on both sides and understand that there will be mistakes, but we've seen mistakes over the past few years. It shouldn't be anything different. The only thing that I'll add to it is for each time we might see an interception or just a bad miss or a bad incompletion, the next play might be a 30-yarder. Like it just could be.
Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, you can go back and watch the film. I believe week 3 last year when we were playing the Green Bay Packers, the Packers were playing all 11 guys inside 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. We're not going to see that ever again with Trey Lance because there's just too much of a threat to throw downfield. We've got too many weapons. Our run game is there, and we're going to be even more balanced. Yeah, we might have a heavy dose of run, but we can throw the ball all over the field. I'm confident that Lance can, in fact, do that. One of the things that I've said time and time again on Spaces is that just because you have a stronger arm, that doesn't mean that you're going to be taking more risks. That doesn't mean that your decision-making can't be better. That doesn't mean you're more interception prone. You can have a big arm and still be a conservative quarterback, right? And so that's the thing that I love about Trey is that, I mean, in college, granted his competition, he had 0 interceptions the full season that he played. It's pretty much damn near impossible to go through any sort of football to have 0 turnovers or 0 interceptions when you're playing that many games against any competition. So we know that, 1, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. 2, he doesn't compile mistakes, and he learns. He'll throw a pick. He threw 2 interceptions in the 2 games that he started. He threw 1 in each game. What did he do after that? He did not throw an interception. He got better. He learned from his mistakes, and he didn't do it again. I think if he does that consistently this year, we can talk about expectations later. I don't have any reason to believe that we can't make a deep run into the playoffs and potentially win the Super Bowl because literally we were playing with a quarterback that compiled the same mistake after same mistake after same mistake. And so if he can just do better and continue to learn, and somebody in the chat said, just have better decision making and use that arm when you need to, like Jamal said, and have explosive plays. There's no reason why we can't be in the bowl this year. One thing that I also agree with Jamal on is that, and you've heard Trey Lance say this in his press conferences, he's talking about explosives, right? Kyle Shanahan loves explosives. Well, with Jimmy Garoppolo, the explosive plays with Yak, it was a 5-yard slant or a 10-yard in, and the receiver would take it 20 yards, right? We're going to have the ball go 30, 35 yards in the air, and maybe we don't get as much Yak, but the air yards are going to be there, and the more explosive plays are going to happen more often. The offense might sputter maybe a little bit more. It may not look as crisp, but Jamal's exactly right. I mean, there could be a play. I mean, remember the preseason game against the Chiefs last year. He has Brandon Ayuk rolling to the left, right? He passes that up and hits Trent Sherfield for an 80-yard touchdown. That's stuff that, 1, Jimmy Garoppolo could never do. 2, that is a regularity with Trey Lance. He's done that multiple times, and he's shown that he passes up maybe the easier decision, the easier throw, but makes the deeper throw and gets more explosive on offense. So that's what I'm excited to see, just as long as he doesn't compound mistakes. And what I'm looking for out of him tomorrow, again, it's a preseason game. This is the time to take chances. If he throws a couple of balls that should have been intercepted, or he throws an interception or two in 2 or 3 series, whatever, it's preseason. He's going to go back and look at the film and say, you know what, I tried to fit that ball in here, and I shouldn't have in a regular game. I'll take off and use my legs. Because he's smart enough to be able to process that information and not make the same mistake twice. So for me, if he's not as crisp, he doesn't look great, that's fine. I'm sure he's going to take the time to do things maybe he's been practicing and try to implement in a game, which is totally fine. Again, it's not the regular season. But of course I want him to look good. But if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world.
And I'm right there with you. I like that we're all three on the same page about this. Obviously, all three of us agree that we were obviously ready for the future. We were ready for Trey Lance even last year. We've talked about this multiple times. I wanted to touch on something that Throwback had mentioned. He says, I'm okay with Trey Lance making mistakes. That's how he will get better. It took Josh Allen 3 years to be accurate. And I agree with that. But I also want to say this too, because I feel like I'll go so far as to say there's a high potential in this year. Trey Lance may be further along than Josh Allen was, after his first year starting. But you have to put context to that. I'm not saying he's on a trajectory to be better than Josh Allen. I'm saying through his first year starting, he may actually be further along. And I think the stats may prove that, and potentially winning percentages may prove that as well. But the context that I want to add to that is, who did Josh Allen have during his rookie season? He was thrown to the likes of a rookie in Zay Jones and Zay Jones and Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin had already changed teams. I think he was with the Panthers before that, and it already fizzled out over there, and he came over to the Bills. He was throwing to those 2 wide receivers. One of them, in Zay Jones, was a rookie. And then the only true weapon that he had was Charles Clay, the tight end. He was really good back then, actually. Charles Clay was a good tight end there for like 2-3 years. Now, if you look at that with Trey Lance, who are the weapons that Trey Lance has, right? Brandon Ayuk, and he's got really good chemistry with him.
Weapons in the NFL, yeah.
Exactly. So if you look at the weapons that he has versus the weapons that Trey Lance has and the coach that Trey Lance has, he's set to hit the ground running further along than Josh Allen. I'm not saying he's going to be better. I'm just saying look at how it might look early on. Trey Lance has the talent and the ability, but he also has good weapons, and that's what team football is. That's not a slight on anybody. And then the last thing I wanted to say, too, was his decision-making. And Kevin had touched on this as well, too. I think there's a lot to be said in the game of football and really any competition in general, the mental fortitude. We already know he's a book smart. We already know he wants to be great. He has the drive and hunger to be great. We know he's going to be, and he has been in the playbook. There's reasons you hear, oh yeah, he learned the playbook after about a month and a half. Like he's like, he loves football and he wants to be great, right? So that part I think is really big, but also, and Kevin had touched on this as well too, the ability to bounce back from those plays. Oh man, I threw an interception. That one was really bad. Okay, cool. Can you actually forget that and move on to the next play? I've seen that already. Is it enough to say that it's a trend? No, because it was just in the Texans game. But it's not something I'm looking at as a concern yet. It's just something I'm still watching. I think he's made of the right stuff. I guess that's what I'm really getting at. I think he's made of the right stuff to really bounce back. He's had a lot of people doubt him. He was recruited as a safety. Like, we know these things. These are things that if you wanted to and you want to know, you can research about them or talk to guys like myself, Nate, Kevin, anyone that you trust that are big Niners fans. They can tell you some of this stuff. So I look at those things and I say, I just think he has the tools. But more than just the tools, he's got the coach. He's got the players on the field. He's set to hit the ground running. Even though there may be bumps and bruises along the way, this team has shown the ability to still win games.
Yeah, and
one more thing I just want to say to that real quick is that any quarterback will tell you the first thing that happens is what happens between the ears, right? You got to be smart mentally. You've got to be able to bounce back quick, like Jamal said. But you have to be able to process the game. It starts in the mind, right? You get the play, you analyze the defense, and then the body takes over. I've said it time and time and spaces. What is Tom Brady great at? He's the best quarterback I've ever seen between the ears. Mentality and command of the offense. So if Trey can master that, which obviously he's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL already, he's proved that learning Kyle Shanahan's playbook in a month. If he can get that down and he can just trust what he sees and then the ability follow, he's going to be fine. And I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised, and I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year.
And I think closing this whole thing out, I think there's obviously we're going to talk about a lot the next couple weeks about these preseason games and different things, but I want people to remember something. Josh Allen, who's now the second best quarterback in the entire NFL, and I'm not going to say he's better than Patrick Mahomes because he's not, but the second best quarterback in the entire NFL. No, he's not. I will mute you, Jamal. I swear to God. So his first year in the NFL, all he did was run. All he could do was run. He had no accuracy, no anything. As he started to develop accuracy. He started to develop better decision making. He started understanding how to read a defense. Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in the NFL. Jamal, shut up. Literally said the year he played the 49ers in the Super Bowl, which was his second year as a starter, he started understanding how NFL defenses work. It takes time. This is going to take time. And I understand we could say Trey Lance is better than Jimmy Garoppolo. He probably is from a decision-making standpoint, from an arm talent standpoint, from a standpoint of what he possesses in his body versus what Jimmy Garoppolo possessed, of course. But the NFL is about learning defenses, learning different, just different schemes, all that stuff. And so this is going to be a learning process for Trey Lance. And I think people need to understand that. It's not always going to be pretty. And I think that tomorrow, that first quarter, we'll see what happens, right? If he looks like a god, we're going to come on this podcast next week and we're just going to talk all the shit in the world because that's how we are, right? But I think that this is going to take some time. And I think that we're going to notice over the course of the year he becomes better. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited for. I think I'm most excited to watch this kid grow with a team that is not that is better than whatever Josh Allen had until he got Stephon Diggs. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are better than anything Josh Allen had his first 2 years in the NFL. And that's a huge boon for Trey Lance. And I think that's really exciting. So we'll end that here for now. The big game tomorrow, we're going to check out. There's a lot of things to check out. I think hopefully we gave you some ideas of different things to check out. Kevin, if people want to check out your stuff, how can they do it?
I'm going to be co-hosting with Niner Nate, and I'm super excited about that. But again, you can find me at SF9949 on Twitter. Very active in spaces, tweet a lot of crazy shit. So if you want some entertainment, please follow, please like and subscribe our podcast, Nate's podcast, and a lot of cool shit's going to happen this year, and it's about to get wild. Let's just say that.
Let's go, Kevin.
How can people check out your stuff?
Kevin, you just got me hyped right there, bro. He said it's going to get crazy. You got me hyped, bro.
Let's go.
Yes, guys, you can find me. I will also be co-hosting with Nate on Tuesdays, as he mentioned at the beginning of the show. You can find me here on Tuesdays. I will be on with Amin the Dream every other week. You can find me. I'll be going on with Rohan and Marco, 49ers Red Zone. I believe I'm doing a show with Chris Polo at some point, too. A couple other guest appearances as well. Right, Polo Dolo? Who's that?
Just kidding.
So I'll be going live with other guys as well, too. But the main spot you can find me at, because I'm sure I'll post it there, will be on Twitter. You can use my handle that's right up here, YoungJA, but at a 49er. The numbers, I almost said letters, numbers 49, then the letters ER, Young JA, or you could call me Young Ja. I go by both. I know some people, young shit. No, shut up. It's not. Okay, shut up. It's Young JA. So you can find me at those spots. I'm super excited, ready for football to be back. And I hope you guys rock with us. This show is going up.
Absolutely. I'm excited. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Tell your friends. As you always know, the show will be up as a podcast. You can check it out as a podcast if you want to listen on your commute to work. And we're going to enjoy this. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be back on Tuesday. Me and Jamal will be right here on this channel. I'll have a video ready. And then Kevin will be up on me and Kevin will be up on Thursday. You can find me at Niner849. You can find me on Twitter doing spaces, talking shit about Jimmy Garoppolo, all that fun stuff. It's Niner season. No more Bay Area sports on this channel. Only Niners until next February. So get hyped, get ready.
Let's go.
We'll see what happens. Last time 49ers made the NFC Championship game. Maybe this time they'll make the Super Bowl. Who knows, right? As always, hype never stops, baby.